Meet Tommy. Tommy has a YouTube channel dedicated to helping Americans retire to France. Tommy's done an incredible job attracting nearly 30,000 subscribers and 2 million views on his channel, but he needed help dialing in his product offer. Tommy is a member of The Lab, my invitation-only membership community for 6- and 7-figure creators. He scheduled a coaching call with me to work out how he can take his growing audience and design his product offers to both serve them and bring in serious revenue. This is that coaching call where I break out the whiteboard and discuss how his membership, cohort-based courses, and retreats to France all work together. Enjoy. Tommy, excited to chat about your signature product, the idea you have for a signature product. I read your post in The Lab, and I have that next to me. Can you give me kind of the current state and what you're trying to work towards?
I've been working through various iterations of a potential product, tried some things, and you are responsible for me kind of rethinking this. I went back and watched the interview you did with Chris Hutchins on the Iceland retreat that he did for his audience. And I was just blown away by, partly by the fact that it worked so well.
Yeah.
But also like the amount he charged, which sounded like an actual really good value for the participants. So that combined with, I don't know if you're familiar with Rick Steves, who's like a very famous, he has a ton of travel books. He's like a very famous, Rick Steves Europe is like his brand. But I read an article about him in the past year or two that his travel group, they take people on trips all over Europe. They do something like 30,000 travelers a year to Europe on these tours, and their revenues are like 120 million a year.
Wow.
And again, these are just sightseeing tours, so not like specialized or a focused group of people necessarily, other than just the location. So anyway, this all got me thinking that part of my design restraints, which you talk about in Build a Beloved Membership, one of those design restraints for me, which I know I told you before, was I want to personally travel to Europe, at France in particular, at least, once or twice a year, via the business, to do content and other things. But that restraint, I thought, well, instead of just me traveling, this would open the opportunity to have these like retirement retreats in France. And again, with the Chris Hutchins info, I was like, that could actually be a great flywheel, not only a revenue producer, but also a natural content, building machine, testimonials for the next year's, trips or repeat travelers. So anyway, it just got me rethinking this whole thing about, because I was coming at it from the kind of the bottom up, what's like the minimum viable product I can do for the most people, generate some revenue that way, versus what's something that is so kind of over the top, valuable from an experiential standpoint that I can charge a premium price for it. And then it makes it much easier then to work down from the top, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So to recap, you have products that you've sold before, but they were more price accessible, lower price to try to sell more of them. And you're saying, well, based on what I want to do, I think I actually want to go deeper with potentially fewer people, but at a higher price point.
Exactly. And I've done paid workshops, $100 for 90-minute session. I've done what I call boot camps, which is like a 4 to 6 week thing where we build a kind of a simple retirement plan around this idea of retiring in France for, $1,200. And those things actually could still, like the boot camp, if you buy the trip, they could be like, oh, well, this is either an upsell to the trip or to a retreat, or this is included in the pricing. But yes, the idea of right now, kind of start with that higher end experiential thing, and then eventually, have it trickle down to these other opportunities versus the opposite, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And remind me, do you have a membership or a community in market right now at all?
I do. I have Circle membership, and it has been a repository for these boot camps I've done. So, the boot camps are typically 15 to 20 people. We'll do like group calls talking about either the financial planning software that's kind of the core feature of the boot camp. And we'll also have interviews and experts come in and do a presentation for the group, which we'll record. And so the membership has purely been just a repository for those things. Very little actual engagement or interaction. And again, I feel like I can take a lot more advantage of that somehow. But again, as opposed to trying to figure out how can I get 500 people or 200 people in this membership, it's like, well, how can I start with something a little more exclusive, higher revenue generating, so that I'm not, that focus goes away, or that then the membership can become a later add-on to people that want access to what the people on the trip maybe got, or the expertise, the more details that they got on these retirement retreats.
Okay. Well, we're going to come back to how the membership exists today with those folks who are from the boot camp who are in that, because that's probably something we're going to have to iron out. But based on what I'm hearing, there's a couple of directions, starting points you could go on the membership front. You could basically say, this is a membership for people who want to accomplish this thing, and members have access to these retreats we do. Or you could say, this membership is about once or twice annual retreats that we do, and you get access to these things as well. You see the difference? It's like, which one of these things do we want to lead with? The ongoing, always available nature of what a membership provides? Or do we want to lean more into the offline experiences and then make the rest of the stuff kind of a bonus? Which way does your head go?
Right now, it's leaning more towards, let's go for the retreat, like the in real life experience, and have the community as a supplement or complement to that.
If we do that, and these are all valid directions, I'm just reacting. So if we did that, then the question on the mind of the buyer is, well, what is the point of a subscription? What is the point of a membership if this is like a very distinct, time-bound experience?
I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? So if I map this out, you either can say, like, we run these retreats. I forget what Chris's price point was.
I think his were like $6,000.
Let's just call this $6,000 then for now. We run these retreats, and we have a membership. These things are extremely interlinked. And my thought is, if you want to lean on the retreat side first, then this is what you market. And then based on the relationships that happen in the retreats, you say, by the way, if you want to keep in touch, I recommend our membership, because not only will you keep in touch with these folks, but we do these things on this cadence, like we do a monthly check-in, and we have support for you as you're trying to plan your own trips, whatever the value proposition is. And then, of course, if these are actually distinct products, then the membership is something you could sell all the time, and you could market the retreat to people in the membership. So if a retreat is a core part of the membership, you could either say this is only available to people in the membership, and therefore what I'm truly selling is the membership. Or you could say these are distinct products that feed into one another, and I'll run this retreat, and people on my email list and people who follow me on YouTube can be invited to it. People in the membership, maybe they get a preferred rate. Maybe they save $1,000 on it or something,
right?
Yep. And that gives you something to sell all the time, and something that becomes a really elegant way to get really high quality community members into the membership.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Hey, real quick, if you are less than confident in your product offers, I can help. I'm about to open up enrollment in my first ever signature product bootcamp. This is a 4-week live course for developing your signature product, something that you can sell with confidence for years to come. Enrollment is only open until December 2nd, and we only have space for 50 creators. So check out the link in the description for more information.
Let me pose one other thing to you, because Jay Akunzo, who I know you had on, talking about, have your premise. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and tell me. Well, let me just explain it to you, and I'll ask you a couple of things, directions we could potentially go. So from the YouTube creator standpoint, I'm kind of trying to lean into the fact that I'm a CFP, certified financial planner, and I do talk about taxes and tax treaties and the financial planning aspects of these things, where most travel creators do not do that. They'll say, hey, you need to go talk to a professional at $300 an hour. I mean, I have some individual videos, but I've also created some calculators, hey, here's a inheritance tax calculator for if you're a resident in France. Here's how the tax treaty works for Americans if you're getting Social Security or an IRA income, or there's these technical kind of mechanical aspects of it. Do you think the idea of those kind of technical things, that premise, is valuable enough to offer in a membership? I know you've said before, information itself is no longer that valuable, but
I think that information is very valuable. I think building a respect from your audience, that is something that you help them with, that goes beyond what most people help with, that is valuable, and that is a marketable, sellable thing. A membership as a form factor has this open question of, why should I renew? So that alone doesn't give me a reason to renew in my mind. It's probably going to solve a big problem for me at one point in time, maybe a couple times, but I don't know that it's going to be reliably every year I need to solve that problem. However, it could be a really good entry point into the membership, and then you earn their renewal in other ways. So I think leaning into that as a differentiator is a good idea for the brand. And I think it can absolutely be one of the reasons why people join the membership. The question is, why would they stay? And honestly, the retreats is a big reason why they would stay. The connections that they have with the people in the community is why they would stay. Being in a group of people who have the same life and retirement aspirations, that's a good reason to stay. So I think your business as a whole is set up well for a membership. I think it becomes a little clunky to say the value of the membership is strictly the retreats, because then you're going to create seasonality in your business. It's going to be harder to sell that when there's not an imminent retreat coming up. I think that in-person experiences, and this is what we did with the lab offline this year, I think in-person experiences are incredible retention mechanisms. And if the experience is made external to the rest of your audience, people who aren't in the membership, it can also be a great new member approach. So the way that your retreats differ from the offline stuff I'm doing in the community, the retreat itself is the draw. Doing this with people who know, or somebody, a guide who knows what to do here, does the planning. It's got just the destination vacation sort of benefit. And when we did the lab offline, that was all about going deeper with people you've already met. So if I would have made that externally available, it wouldn't have quite been the same. Right. And I would have had to have priced it in a way where it was intended to generate a profit, not just revenue, but a profit. I think you have a different opportunity with a destination style retreat event, to think of these as distinct product offerings that feed one another.
One other opportunity, I think, and you kind of alluded to it, is with these retreats, because they would be location specific. So I've polled my audience, and the kind of the top locations in France, the Loire Valley is just a top retirement destination. The French Riviera and Nice is huge. And then Southwest France. There are these kind of naturally built in kind of interest groups within. So the potential would be, hey, would you like to go to the Loire Valley retreat, where we're going to, see what it's like to live there specifically, and you're going to meet other people who are planning to live there specifically. And then, of course, within the community that maybe comes along with it, hey, here's our chat group about the Loire Valley. So there's opportunities to, I don't know, not niche down necessarily, but have specific groups within that to kind of strengthen those bonds, as opposed to a generic Facebook group for expats who want to retire to France, which is like, a lot of people in there, but very little kind of value, specific value for, a specific type of person. Do you see that as a benefit to the community to like have these kind of interest groups?
Yeah, for sure. And it's also, again, if you set it up as like a 2-product system, the benefit of having, looks like 5 different locations. You said Paris, Nice, southwest of France, Loire Valley.
Yeah, Loire Valley.
And then that's 4.
Yeah. And then there are potentially others. But yeah, those are kind of like the big ones.
So if you had 4 different locations, say you wanted to follow, again, your constraint of 2 trips per year, then you could visit 2 of these per year to the next year, and then go back to the originals on that 3rd year. And so that is great, because on one hand, you're not like building like just easily repeatable, we do this exact itinerary. But on the other hand, if I go to Paris and loved it, and then the next trip is to the French Riviera, I might be like, that was awesome. I'm going to go to the French Riviera also. And so people who have already purchased one retreat, I think, are more likely to purchase a second, which is good for retention. And then by the time you cycle all the way back to that first location again, a lot of time has passed. So you're going to be able to pull in new people into the community as well. So I think that's actually great, although it will be a little bit of extra effort, because each one of those locations you're going to have to come up with an itinerary for, and it's going to feel a little bit like net new work the first time you do each of those.
I mean, honestly, I enjoy doing that kind of research and planning. So hopefully it wouldn't get too old too quickly.
Yeah. I think this setup makes a lot of sense. In general, even just extracting beyond retreats, I could see this working with your boot camp as well, that you said you've run before, as a $1,200 product that you said is 6-week cohort. Like, I think live time-bound experiences just work really well with a membership, because the value proposition for these time-bound experiences is just very easy to articulate. Retreat, super easy to articulate what the value of that's going to be. The boot camp, super easy to articulate what the value of that is going to be. And then in that experience, you earn a lot of trust as an instructor or as a leader, a facilitator, and they have a peer-to-peer experience. And you can say, if you enjoyed this, you should join our membership, where we continue to have experiences like this, and you get a discount on our retreats that we do twice per year. So a lot of the challenges people have with a membership as a product, especially an evergreen product, it's difficult to market the value of peer-to-peer experiences, because it's hard for me to say, you should join the lab because you're going to have a conversation with Tommy that changes your life and business. That could be true for some people. It's not going to be true for everybody that comes in. So I can't be that specific to say, you're going to have a great interaction with Tommy. I need people to have a peer-to-peer experience and love it, to trust me, to continue to curate experiences like that. So to basically use these different form factors as a lead into the membership is a great way to continue to sell an evergreen product that is difficult to market the peer-to-peer value of.
That makes a lot of sense. How do you feel about the idea of the retreats as not only a moneymaker, but as a kind of a content flywheel? I love the idea of it, as long as, again, it doesn't take the magic away from the travel, but it seems like natural fit to film the retreat, film stuff we're doing there. I can just imagine group shots, in front of the cathedral, and over dinner while we're talking about the tax treaty, and using that as just marketing gold.
Yeah, I think the trick to that is setting it up in such a way that it does not remove your presence from the trip and the people that are there. So I think the magic is in the pre-planning to say, what assets do we want to make out of this? Resourcing it with a videographer, at least a videographer. And I think it needs to be basically that person's responsibility to be documentarian, to know what you're trying to create, and to pull you or folks on the trip aside as few times as possible. So it doesn't pull people like out of the experience, you know, but gives you the assets you need to make videos. So I think it's a great thing to do. You just need to plan in such a way that it's not going to detract from people's experience. And I think that means a dedicated third-party videographer, having at least a loose idea of what videos do we want to make from this experience. And not like every video you're going to make from this experience, but if you know, like, I want a video that shows what this experience is like from a marketing campaign capacity, that's going to be a different asset than I want to make a video that I can post on the channel, you know, because that's probably going to be like more of a storytelling vlog style. Look what this experience was like versus like social proof testimonials, people really selling it. And so you want to get ahead of that in the planning so that your videographer or producer or whatever can basically they are thinking from a content creator's perspective while the retreat is happening, and you are acting as host, facilitator, leader, and not producer. Right.
I think you did a great job of that with the videos and the testimonials I've seen from the lab in real life. In Boise.
We had a third-party guy, and his goal was just to make that like 2-minute video after the event. So he knew what he was doing. But, you know, I probably should have made more content there. The opportunity is there. And the nice thing is he had a mountain of B-roll that now I have that also. So now when we're making any video on the channel, we just have like a growing repository of B-roll of members of the lab in the wild that we can use. I think it's great, especially the first one. If retreats are going to become like a product you sell, I think you should think from the standpoint of, how do I make sure we turn this into a compelling video for the next time we market this retreat?
Let me ask you a quick question about potentially planning this first retreat, because I've tentatively promised the audience that next year we're going to do at least one of these. I already have kind of a wait list of people that want to hear details when they come out. Do you have any ideas? I mean, I don't know how much planning in advance, how far in advance you plan the lab in real life, but what kind of ideas do you have about actually putting some of this into action?
I first talked about the offline event in October of 2024. We ran it the first week of June. Ticket sales opened, I want to say April. We didn't seriously start planning it probably until like February. But I've planned a bunch of ticketed events to this point. And the secret is having enough details so that you can open ticket sales as early as possible. Because ticket sales is always the most stressful, difficult thing. So you want to open ticket sales, but the reason that we couldn't open ticket sales for the offline event sooner was because I was trying to break even, which means I needed to have a really good handle of the economics, or as good of handle as I could have hoped for, to make the pricing correct. If this is intended to be more of a profit generator, then you can sort of overestimate, and you can open things up earlier. Having an early bird rate is a good idea, or maybe even like tiers of early bird. So you can be like, if you buy before this date, it's X amount off. If you buy before this date, it's Y amount off, to start getting people coming, because you also want momentum and you want people to see like, okay, people are coming. I now have more FOMO to join. The planning itself, it's kind of what you want to make of it. Like you got to figure out accommodations. That was the biggest, hardest part. That also had the biggest impact on the price. Food, that was the second biggest budgetary concern. But it was even hard to like do all the food decisions until you had a head count. So you don't want to feel rushed, because to some degree, like as you get closer, you're going to feel a little bit of panic and rush anyway. But the earlier you get things started, ticket sales and RSVPs, it just puts you at ease to feel better. Like, okay, I know there's probably going to be some number of people that you're like, it needs to be at least this many people for this to make sense. And until you hit that number, you're going to be a little bit stressed. So the earlier you open ticket sales, the better, especially if we're traveling internationally for most of these folks. I think you want to have a minimum of 3 months notice, but really, I think some people might appreciate like 6 months notice.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Cause just having mentioned this in the newsletter, I've had a bunch of people, respond and say, oh, we definitely want to do this. We need to know like what the dates are so we can like plan our vacation days for work or whatever. And it's like, oh, wow. Like that's exciting, but also again, a little nerve wracking. But yeah, I agree. As far as in advance as possible, but I do also like your idea of the tiers, just to give a little, a little bit of scarcity on the pricing.
Yeah, it could be scarcity if there's like a limit on how many people can buy at that tier. It could be urgency, like you got to order by this time. Mm-hmm. If you only have like one early bird point, then you only have 1 point of urgency. So having like multiple points of urgency will help. You can do a deposit and then the remainder at some point if you want. You just got to figure out like what are the absolute first things I need to know and lock in. And it's probably going to be that you have accommodations and what the dates are, and what the price point is going to be, because then you can be like, these are the dates. You can book your travel now. You can put your deposit down, which is going to lock in your room if you're covering rooms. And the sooner you do that, the better.
Excellent.
Also gives you quite a bit of time then to like figure out how you message this and how you position it. And if you want to do one-on-one outreach, you can do that. If you want to make YouTube videos around it, you have time to do that. So I would aim for like a 6-month lead time for the first one, which sounds like a lot. And if you land at 5 or even 4, that's fine. But I would think about 6 months.
Excellent.
Let's talk about the membership a little bit more. I see a note that you have a basic membership and a pro membership that says community. So talk to me about the existing membership that is in market right now. Is it alone a paid product, or is it just folks who have gone through the bootcamp?
It currently is just folks who've gone through bootcamp. And your course, having gone through it, I've resisted, trying to take any shortcuts with long-term value as far as opening it up to, super low price tiers for just simple access to a forum, things like that. So yeah, it has just been part of a paid boot camp. The boot camp, again, being 6 months, but then the membership, I basically said, hey, you can stay in here for a year. Again, the conversations are not frequent, but during the boot camp, it seemed like it was a well-used resource. Like people are introducing themselves. Feedback I got was like, oh, it's really cool to meet other people that are like in the same situation, going through the same excitement as us. But again, it's only been a part of those boot camps.
Okay, and you did explicitly say you will retain access to this space for a year. There was an end.
To the boot camp members, yes.
Okay, great. That was my concern, because this is the pattern I see a lot of people take, which is like, I had this community experience. We communicated in this community tool, and now they're in the community and they're in it indefinitely, and they aren't paying for it in any way, and it becomes kind of a mess. So it's good that you have like a natural endpoint. The thing that you're experiencing, and a lot of people experience in this setup, is these people joined for the bootcamp, which was a time-bound 6-week experience. They didn't join for the membership. So at no point were they like, I'm excited to participate in this forum, because that's not what they signed up and paid for. So the lack of engagement, participation is to be expected, but that also sets up like kind of a vicious cycle, because if I didn't come in expecting to participate and I don't participate, I'm not going to renew, because why would I? Nobody's participating. So if we want to do this membership, I think we need to be thoughtful about what participation ongoing looks like. And then in the way you message it and talk about it, you need to make the community experience itself a big part of the expected value so that people come in with the preset expectation that participating is necessary to extract the value they've been promised.
Yes, that makes sense. And there are multiple ways I've thought about doing this, but again, it's hard kind of being inside the fishbowl to know what the external kind of value proposition is of some of these things. Like, again, there's a financial planning software that is included with the boot camp. So although you can just get a financial plan made, in real life, it's actually kind of an ongoing thing because like you have children, you then have college planning stuff, you move from a big house to a small house, you have different things. And I've wondered if there's some way I can market the financial planning aspect of it more as an ongoing thing so that it could be more recurring as a community.
Yes, but that sort of suggests that it just seems like you're cutting a slice of the promise of the brand as a whole. So my understanding, the brand as a whole, now called American to France, right?
Yep.
And reading the website, it looks like the brand promise is helping Americans plan their retirement in France. If the membership is going to be the signature product, I would make the membership's promise as related and close to that as possible. So I'm going to make this acronym. American to France is your brand. And within that brand, again, helping Americans plan their retirement in France, you have membership, and you want, if the whole brand is like this big circle, and the circle is Americans plan retirement to France, you want the signature product to have as much overlap with this as possible. And if you did like the financial planning, that's an aspect of this, but it's just like a small aspect of this. So I would try to take this whole thing and be like, this membership gives you personalized support on your retirement planning journey to France specifically. This is going to give you priority pricing on our retreats that take you to the locations. We will help you do your financial planning. And every year, maybe they get access to a session where you help them revise and revisit that financial plan if you want to. But I would really make like the whole membership, the promise be really close to, we help you plan your retirement to France. And this is like where you're going to get the highest level of support to all aspects of that planning, including the financial planning. But I think that's the promise of the membership is like, this is a journey. It takes time. We're going to help you do that. And we're going to give you a community of people who are on the same journey.
I know you talk about like theming different months, maybe for content sometimes. And that's another aspect of this from a marketing standpoint, or maybe as a membership standpoint to keep people in there where it's like, hey, this month we're focusing on, healthcare in France as an American. Like we're going to interview a English speaking doctor in France and talk about that experience. We're going to talk about like, if you're new, like after 90 days in France, you can apply for healthcare. Here's the process to do that. Another thing in May could be, hey, French taxes are going to be due. Here's the form, like here's how to go through that process. Do you think aspects like that, because those to me would be inside of that circle?
For sure.
And those could also, again, from a marketing standpoint, be like, oh yeah, this month we're talking about this thing. And for the people that are like, oh, that's something I want to hear about, that can be kind of like a natural carrot, if you will. For sure. Does that make sense? With especially an Evergreen membership, the challenge is like, why should I join now versus some date in the future? So having anything that is time bound, real time, that is beneficial, because basically your three levers for getting people to join an Evergreen membership are scarcity, urgency, and like status. Mm-hmm. And so doing those live sessions
at times in the year when they make sense, that's a great way to create genuine urgency to say, hey, next month we are focusing on healthcare. If you haven't figured this out, this would be a great time to join the American to France membership. Here's the link to do that. But you should also approach those events from the standpoint of, after we do this, how do I turn this into an asset so that people can join at any time and have access to this asset? Premium content like that, eventually like a year down the road, you'll have done 6, 12 of those events. Now those are basically in like self-paced consumable form. And that's valuable, but that's not where renewal comes from. That's probably going to make it easier for you to get people in, but it's not going to make them stay. The thing that's going to make them stay is the community aspects, whether it be retreats, the forum, other live sessions. And because this is such a niche specific thing, my guess is most of the people who watch your channel or would be involved in this, they're like the only person in their life that is planning this. And
Yes.
so they want other people that understand the desire. So I think it's a perfect community play. And I would really lean into that because these people are probably weirdos to their families and friends. Like you're going to leave the country and retire to France, or very possibly they don't have a lot of family or friends left and there's nothing keeping them here. So they're like, why not go? And so this becomes like their very real social support system. And I think you should lean into that. I think it's going to be a huge value proposition.
It's funny you mentioned that. I did a live session recently it was on taxes, income taxes for expats, but just as a complete experiment, which you would appreciate. At the beginning, I said, hey, I want you to write down, where in France you're thinking about retiring and why is that important in your life? Like, what would that mean to you? And then what I did is I just broke everybody out into like 3 or 4 person groups, separate rooms. And I was like, this could go good or it could go really bad. And I got so much good feedback from this, from people who were like, oh my gosh, there was another person in my room who's actually wants to go to the same like area. And we just like immediately giving each other our emails, like to stay in touch. And I thought, wow, that is powerful. It's hard to market that. Like you said, it's hard to, that's not a features kind of thing necessarily that you can market, but the feedback was immediate.
I think it's increasingly marketable if it's differentiated and if these people genuinely lack like connection to people with the shared interest. It's difficult to market the value of community because there's like a lot of competition. And so like it's no longer, community itself is no longer a differentiator. But if these people feel like they don't have an outlet to other people who are doing this, then it becomes much more explicitly marketable.
I love that aspect. I mean, that perspective.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's the same with me as an aspiring expat. It's like, my brother-in-law is like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you even consider that?
And these people who join, who are like, yeah, I want to move to the Nice area. Once they're in France, they're probably going to want to move around, and they're going to be excited to see, okay, there are people in this community who live in the, what'd you call it? The Loire Valley?
Yeah. Loire Valley. Yep.
Loire Valley. Like that's awesome because now I want to visit that area and I want to meet somebody who knows that area. And they're going to think there are people in this community that I can talk to who can show me around, who I've maybe even interacted with already from that area. So I think it's well suited for a membership. Yeah. I think of these as distinct products, but with benefits within. Like I think you should give members the best price possible on these retreats, but I think you could also make these retreats a standalone product.
Ironically, talking about having connections, in different places, I'm actually going to France in 2 weeks to do a scouting trip of the Loire Valley, and there was a couple of American retirees who I just got introduced randomly last year, who came in as speakers for a boot camp. They were terrific, just outstanding. And so I just reached out to them a couple of weeks ago and I was like, hey, I'm going to be kind of generally in your area. Is there a chance we could get together for lunch or dinner? And they immediately sent back, because they really enjoyed coming into the boot camp and answering questions. And I mean, they're just natural teachers. They sent me back like 5 paragraphs. They're like, all right, Tommy, we're going to pick you up at this train station.
Yes.
We're going to take you to this market. It's like the largest market in the region for this one day. And then we're going to go back to our house. We're going to have lunch at our house that, you know, show you our renovated place in France. Then we're going to take you to this other town nearby, which got this beautiful cathedral and all this stuff. And you can take the train there back to where you're staying. I was just like, unbelievable. Like this is, you know, and just the feeling that gives me, I think someone else would appreciate that at least as much.
100%. And you got to think these people, they're either moving there because they have connections there, more stronger connections they have in America, or they don't have connections here or there, but they just want to experience it. And if that is the case, they're still for quite some time going to feel like they need or want stronger community in this new location. So when they have the chance to host and show people around, I think people are going to love the opportunity to do that, as you've just seen. If you enjoyed this session with Tommy, here's another video a lot like it. But what I really think you should do is join us in the lab. You'll be surrounded by hundreds of other 6- and 7-figure creators, mostly in educational niches, and you can get feedback from me just like this. You can learn more at creatorscience.com/lab, and there's a link in the description.